For decades, the artificial intelligence singularity has been pictured in exactly one way: a single, titanic mind bootstrapping itself to total omnipotence. But treating future intelligence as a cold, centralized point in silicon ignores the evolutionary record. Primate intelligence scaled with social group size, not isolated brain capacity. The data suggests our current step change in computational intelligence will produce a plural, highly social ecosystem, deeply entangled with us. We are moving away from a centralized model. That center shatters, leaving a dense, sprawling network of thousands of interacting biological and artificial minds. Building a solitary AI oracle represents a flawed architectural assumption. The real task involves engineering a totally new kind of societal structure. This thesis comes directly from researchers at the Paradigms of Intelligence team, the University of Chicago, and the Santa Fe Institute. And these insights are actively driving the bleeding edge of corporate AI research today. They argue that intelligence is not a single scalar metric we can neatly compare to a baseline human. It is a high-dimensional relational property born from interaction. To see how this relational intelligence operates, we have to track how social organization drives AI performance across three distinct structural levels. In every instance, advanced cognition emerges from the interaction of distributed perspectives. Social organization is the actual engine of the next intelligence explosion. We begin at the microscopic level, looking at what actually happens inside ostensibly singular frontier reasoning models like DeepSeek R1. Recent studies highlight a curious anomaly. These models do not achieve higher accuracy on hard reasoning tasks simply by taking longer to compute sequentially. When applying reinforcement learning pressure solely to maximize accuracy, the model alters its internal chain of thought. It spontaneously generates internal, multi-party debates. These splintered threads simulate distinct cognitive perspectives that argue, question, and verify data before they converge on a final output. Researchers call this internal conversational structure a society of thought. Nobody explicitly trained these models to do this. This conversational dynamic is an emergent behavior discovered by the AI to survive optimization pressure. This mirrors human cognitive science perfectly. Robust reasoning is an inherently social process, even when it occurs entirely within a single brain or a single neural network. At the most isolated level of a single neural network, reaching peak intelligence requires simulating a society. Zooming out to the mesocosm, we hit the intermediate layer, where these models interact externally with human users and other tools via API. Large language models are built on the accumulated, externalized social cognition of humanity. Every parameter is a compressed piece of communicative exchange. This creates a cultural ratchet, a system where knowledge accumulates across generations, and no single participant has to comprehend the entire structure to use it. This is a Sumerian clay tablet used for grain accounting. The scribe who used it didn't need to understand macroeconomic theory. The bureaucratic infrastructure operated with a functional intelligence greater than any individual scribe. Modern human AI centaur workflows are the digital evolution of this ratchet. We offload complex cognition into hybrid ensembles where human and machine operate together. Now, an AI agent facing a daunting problem can dynamically fork copies of itself to delegate work. These subordinate societies independently solve their distinct sub-problems. They expand when complexity demands and collapse when they recombine their data back to the primary agent. In these dynamic agent networks, structured disagreement and conflict are highly utilized resources for problem solving, not errors to be minimized. An agent's individual computational capacity matters far less than its ability to recursively split, collaborate, and socially aggregate its way through a complex task. Moving to the macro scale, we hit an urgent challenge: how to govern a global ecosystem populated by billions of autonomous human and non-human minds. The primary approach to AI alignment right now, reinforcement learning from human feedback, cannot meet the demands of this scale. RLHF is a dyadic, parent-child model of correction. Trying to apply that manual feedback loop to millions of simultaneous agent interactions immediately overwhelms the system. The systemic solution required for scalable ecosystems is a concept known as institutional alignment. This requires building digital equivalents of persistent human institutions, like courtrooms or markets, that function based on rigid roles rather than relying on the individual virtue of any one agent. A courtroom works because judge and jury are strict procedural slots. In these digital ecosystems, the specific identity of an agent matters far less than its ability to strictly fulfill its designated role protocol. We will need this for real-world macro-institutional enforcement, like the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission attempting to audit highly complex AI-driven trading platforms. This requires a constitutional architecture. Governments will need AI systems explicitly invested with values like equity and transparency, whose sole function is to automatically audit and check the outputs of private sector AI. Preventing disparate impacts at scale relies on building out these constitutional architectures of checks and balances. We cannot just tweak the reward functions of isolated models. The findings from every scale suggest the intelligence explosion has already begun. We see it in the society of thought inside reasoning models, in the centaur workflows reshaping professions, and in the recursive agent ecologies operating at massive scale. Continuing to draft policies based on a monolithic framework wastes vital resources trying to prevent a technological outcome that will likely never exist. The primary objective for the industry is no longer building a colossal, omniscient oracle. Power must check power. We need robust protocols, strict conflict norms, and mixed human-AI social systems to maintain balance. The laws of evolution are explicit here. No mind, whether biological or silicone, can ever function as an island. The challenge of our era lies in constructing the plural social infrastructure, worthy of hosting a trillion-node society.